Let's push through. This battle's ours. Let's go. Settle this quick.
Now accept your fate. Some darker arts cannot relax yet.
Power.
Doesn't look like we can do anything about their
Now,
weakness.
what's up? You first.
I shall let us fight as one.
We'll combine our strength.
Freeze. What a finale! Keep your energy up, everyone.
A halfway decent result.
Hey everyone, it's Scott from RPGFan, and I have a question for all the fans out there. What if Atlus took their two flagship series, Persona and Shin Megami Tensei, and smashed them together? Well, you'd probably end up with the game Atlus has been developing for the last 6 years, the fantastic Metaphor ReFantazio. And I think it's going to pay off big time because Metaphor ReFantazio has the potential to set a new standard for greatness for JRPGs. Thanks to the people over at Atlus, I had the chance to not only sit down and play the first 3 to 4 hours of Metaphor, and another 2 hours in the middle of the game, but also sit in on a question and answer session with the devs as we ask them questions for the upcoming game. If you're more interested, you can find the question and answer part of this coverage on the website and in the link in the description below, as well as a written version of this preview. Still, for the rest of this video, we will be discussing the gameplay and general story of Metaphor. As always, I'll try to keep spoilers to a minimum as best as possible, but it's hard to set the stage for a preview like this without reviewing the experience this game throws at you from the start. Taking the best parts of Persona and the best parts of SMT seems like on paper something that should have happened ages ago, but only just now came to fruition in Metaphor. There could be many reasons it took so long, but it was probably due to the long, complicated process of creating a new RPG IP in the AAA game space. However, in about a month, we'll see if it pays off. But if what we played has any indication of the rest of the game, then it should. Metaphor sets the stage for a world where the storybook fantasy is a world where everyone lives in glittering towers of light, has one race of just humans that all work together, and where discrimination and hardships are a thing of the past. It's a fantasy version of our own world. And who can blame them, when the world of Metaphor is one of rampant discrimination between races, poverty, and slavery. It's got the premise to build on, so let's get into how it all starts. The game starts by explaining what I just told you through narration, and then asking the player for their name. No, not the main protagonist's name, that'll come later, but the actual player. We then meet our main protagonist in a caravan with a few of the characters heading for the capital city of Grand Trad. When it's attacked by bandits, you're given control of the main character and their fairy companion Gallica to finish the journey. You would think you could just swing your sword and start battles with the enemies in the wasteland, but no, your objective is to avoid them all. Any interaction at all will end up with you being killed, which I found hilarious, as it happened to me. This trek is all woven together with some fantastic anime cutscenes that set their narrative of why everybody is on edge with the apparent regicide of the last king that only just recently happened. An election for the next king is on the horizon, and the masses fear who will be next in line. Will be the feared and clever General Lewis, the calm and pragmatic Archbishop Forden, or will the third candidate rise from the bottom and claim victory?
By the power of magic. The United Kingdom of Uchronia. The year is 785. Uchronia is shaken to the core by the sudden death of its king. Anxiety breeds dissent among the tribes. Disparities tear them apart, and no mortal mind remembers the heroic tales upon which their land was built.
Gallica explains your part in this. You were there to seek out someone stationed in the army on behalf of the current prince. After the prince was cursed, it is up to you as his childhood friend to find out who cursed him, and if it has any connection to who just killed the king. So you traverse the city looking for the enlistment center, talking to NPCs along the way. It's here you realize right away that all the NPCs despise you simply because the main protagonist is of the Elder tribe. The racism the narrator described at the start isn't subtle behind the scenes, but it's apparent in almost every conversation as you go through the city. Eventually, you reach the enlistment center, name your protagonist, and answer some questions about yourself. It's my understanding that how you answer these questions will determine the protagonist's starting stats. I believe this because I answered I was small but quick, and the protagonist began with 7 agility, which was his highest stat. So keep that in mind when the game comes out for all my min-maxers out there. This is also where you meet Stroll, our second playable character, and you are both shipped off to the north for training. I really did heavily enjoy this opening section, because our silent protagonist isn't really silent. I've said this before and I'll say it again, I'm not the biggest fan of the silent protagonist, but in Metaphor it's done pretty well. He talks out his choices you make, and responds to Gallica in select spots. So don't go into this thinking Gallica is the protagonist's mouthpiece like I thought. She isn't. I also enjoyed the abundance of voice acting from the NPCs, and the abundance of anime cutscenes throughout. It quickly brings you into Metaphor, and sets an excellent stage.
You know your letters, do you? We'll get some use out of you yet. All right, lad. Welcome to the Guard.
Yes!
The following section quickly becomes anything but a typical training section when arriving at the Northern Training Facility.
Okay.
The fort is under attack by a human. Yes, a human. Humans in this sense are not a race in the world of Metaphor. Instead, they're huge monstrosities that randomly cause havoc throughout the world. In hopes that your contact in the army hasn't died, you and Stroll enter the fort to find him and see if they can help. In the first combat sections, you're relegated to only using the main protagonist, but this will change soon. Metaphor uses the excellent press turn battle system introduced in SMT Nocturne. You hit a weakness or score a crit, and get extra turns. The same goes for your enemies as well. If you've never played an SMT game before, the most basic way to describe it is the strategic use of setting yourself up to hit enemy weaknesses while covering your own weaknesses simultaneously. It's during this boss fight with a human, the protagonist awakens to the unique aspect of the battle system of Metaphor, the job system called
Power
archetypes.
awaits thy command. The time is come to awaken the hero within. Engrave thy very heart.
The job system in this game allows for any of your characters to switch to any unlocked archetype. How do you unlock an archetype? Why through this game's version of social links? Create a connection with a character and unlock a new archetype. Deepen those bonds with those characters, get access to new powers for that archetype. At its core, it's just a great way to put a spin on the Persona social link system. Each archetype also has a unique skill tree attached to it that you must spend a currency called Mag to unlock. The first job you unlock in this boss fight is called Seeker. It's an all-around type job that can do just a bit of everything. This job is attached to the character Moore, who, to put it in Persona terms, is the Igor of this game, including having his own version of the Velvet Room. Once you have access to Seeker, the gameplay starts to ramp up in the boss fight. It very much has the Persona 5 approach to dealing with bosses. You can brute force your way to victory, or you can do unique interactions, such as ordering Gallica to knock off the boss's healing fruits so they can't use them anymore. It's here that if you're a big fan of both series, you start to see the blend of them together in combat. But what about outside of combat?
Understood. Leave it to me. Now it can't heal itself anymore. Don't waste your chance. Get in there.
Come forth, Royal Soul!
Well, they also blend together in normal gameplay as well.
This is so cozy.
In this early section, after the first boss, you, Stroll, and the army contact Grius make their way back to the capital in a typical JRPG style, as going through caves, plains, and forests, while having the story woven throughout them. It's a very typical JRPG experience that you'd find in games like SMT. It's not until later that the time management, social links, and building of social stats occur. Metaphor attempts to find a balance between the two, having sections like the beginning of the game, and having sections where you must manage your time until the following story sections begin.
Time marches on, and the age of a new king draws nearer.
This brings us to the other demo section we got to try out, which occurs much later in the game in the town called Martira. You have 14 days before your party packs up and departs from the city. How you choose to spend those 14 days is up to you. You have a bunch of things you can do, such as town activities to raise your social stats, called virtues in this game, do side quests, go dungeon crawling SMT style, hunt down monsters, hang out with current social links, or even find new characters to start new social links with. Every action, no matter what you choose to do, will increase your popularity score. Remember, at the end of the day, you are in an election race, and being the most popular is the only way to win said election. This is also the section of the game where we use the Gauntlet Runner, the giant vehicle that uses feet instead of treads or wheels to traverse the world. You must use it to go to new locations and dungeons, which takes valuable travel time. But even while traveling, you can do things on the Gauntlet Runner to increase stats, such as cooking, cleaning, reading, or talking to your party members.
It's your call.
Your management of these sections will shape your playthrough, but it does seem that you can do everything you need to do in the time allowed. As for what I got to experience in my playtime in this section, it was a little bit of everything. I first started a side quest with a blue-haired man, who would later reveal themselves as Alonzo and become a social link. His quest sent me to a dungeon to get a ring for him, so I jumped in my Gauntlet Runner, traveled my way there. On the way there, we were attacked by another Gauntlet Runner and another character in the election race. After a mini-boss and a few more scenes, I arrived at the dungeon. In this part of the game, I had a full party with Stroll, Hulkenberg, and Heisman, and access to the archetypes Healer, Brawler, Merchant, Knight, Thief, Seeker, Mage, and Warrior. The dungeon layout was fun and exciting. Off the bat, you noticed something was wrong since the dungeon was full of mimics. So every chest started another mimic fight, including the dungeon boss. It's in battle here I got to experience the synthesis attacks, which are basically team-up attacks that cost 2 press turns and allow you to do things like AoE attacks, or even unique moves between certain archetypes. The dungeon wasn't too long, but it also helps that Metaphor has another remarkable aspect to its combat. And that's the fact that if you are stronger than the enemies on the field, you can choose to engage in action-style combat and wipe them out without having to transition to turn-based. You can even surprise stronger enemies with a few slashes and then stun them before entering turn-based mode, called squad mode, and giving yourself the upper hand in combat. The transitions are snappy, and going in and out of combat felt quick and exciting. After finishing the boss and getting in the ring, the game doesn't cost you travel time to return to the town. Instead, it allows you to go right back, and so I did. I then spent the rest of my time doing things like bungee jumping in town to raise my virtues, doing social links with characters I technically never even got to meet yet, but were still cool to see for the first time, and unlocking 2 new archetypes. These were Faker, which I got from Alonzo after bringing the ring back, and Gunner, which I unlocked in the quest with Nereus, our Gauntlet Runner pilot. A nice little touch was my virtues were raised in all activities, not just ones that focused on them. So don't feel constrained to do only activities that raise them like Persona does. Unfortunately, I had more in-game time than I did real-life time with the game, and couldn't see all the sections of the game up to that point. And so, my experience with Metaphor came to a close.
The free-hearted engineer, Nereus. Within him dwells the virtue of the gunner. Nurture thy bond with him, and a new power yet slumbering within thee may awaken.
I'm ready to kick my feet up, lad.
I can't underestimate how much I enjoy my limited time with Metaphor. Everything felt so polished, and it felt like a game I've been waiting for as both an SMT and a Persona fan for a long while. The music was also so great to finally get to listen to. Maguro has created such beautiful pieces for this game that sometimes I just wanted to sit back and listen to them, but I didn't have the time to. A real standout was the basic battle track, which fits this game's tone so very well. He is still a master of his craft. I can't wait to get my hands on this game this October, and I'm even more hyped than ever before for it. And so we come to a close on another preview. This one was really awesome to attend, and I want to thank Atlas once again for inviting us to the event. You can check out a bunch of pictures from the event in the written version, which is once again in the description below. The question and answer section with the devs is also there, and it has some more tidbits and insights in the game development, and I highly recommend reading through it. If you enjoyed this preview or any of our other previews, then please don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, and leave a comment. It really does help these videos out a ton, and I appreciate all the support. And if you have any questions, by all means, ask in the comments below, and I'll do my best to answer them. Also, we have 1 more month left of our summer marathon of Atlas games in preparation for Metaphor over on our Twitch channel, which has been full of giveaways all summer long. So if that's your thing, head on over. And as always, have a great night, and I'll see you in the next one.
feel stronger.